I was speaking earlier this week in Hawaii, and now I find myself here. I'm from Calgary, and I think all the plane travel was starting to get to me. I was in the washroom in the first break, and my nose just started pouring blood. Luckily, I was in the stall, and luckily my clothes remained bloodless. But what I would love for you to do right now, just for the next 20 minutes, well, no, just in the next few seconds, is to send love to my nose so that we remain blood-free for this presentation. So if you could just, with your hands on your heart, say, Christina, I love your nose, that would be fantastic. Oh, thank you. I even heard you. Thank you. The Dalai Lama said that the Western woman will change the world. I truly agree with him 100%. We heard this morning about women who are in less fortunate circumstances from us. If they are walking all day to get water for their families and their tribe, they do not have the resources that we have. We are so fortunate. And yet with that good fortune comes this monumental task and the weight of abundance. When we have so much at our disposal, sometimes we find that we're running on empty. Because we do, as women, we want to give. We are programmed to nurture. But when we do, like Lucetta said in her talk, when we give it all away, all the time, there's nothing left, and we're running on empty. And how can we change the world when we're running on empty? I volunteer at a lot of events like this in Calgary. And at the registration table, I see two kinds of women arriving. The first one is like, oh my gosh. And plunks her purse down, and her hair is all astray. She's like, I made it. And it's kind of like she was the storm. And then there's the other kind of woman who walks in, sets her purse down, takes a breath. I'm here. I can identify with both of those polarities. I once was the woman who was the chaos of the storm. Everything was rushing from one thing to the next, doing everything for everyone but myself. And I took many years to learn how to become the calm in the storm. I love now to share how to be productive and peaceful at the same time. And a lot of women look at me when I say that's what I love to do, and they say, is that possible? Absolutely. So back to the chaos. I think it started when I was a teacher. I trained for 6 years to become a phys ed and dance teacher, and I wanted to give everything to my students, plus prove that I was in the right job, creating these amazing, spectacular dance performances. So I gave and I gave and I gave. I would come home at night and medicate myself with 6 hours of TV just to numb out because my mind wouldn't stop. I had no tools at all. Then I retired from teaching after 2.5 years in it because I wanted to stay at home with my daughter. I thought my life was going to get easier. If you have kids, you know that it doesn't get easier. I thought teaching was the hardest job in the world. No. Mothering is 24/7. You can't send them home at the end of the day. No, I'm seeing some, I know what you're talking about. So I got a daughter who for 2 years rarely slept. I didn't know to put in my order for a sleeper. So the only way that she would sleep is if I did this. I got in shape really quickly after having my baby because for 2 to 5 hours every night, my husband and I took shifts. And that's what we would do. And we would get her to sleep and we would put her in the crib and be very careful, like take 5 minutes to extract my hands and then there were creaks in the floor and I had memorized where they were, so I'd hold on to the corner and tiptoe over, and then for some reason the creaks changed. If you're in an older home, you might know about that. Paul, your turn. We did that for 2 years. I don't know if you've ever been sleep deprived. I can laugh about it now, but at the time, it changed everything. It was excruciating. When I had my son, I did put in the order for a baby who slept, so things were a lot better by that time. But I was still trapped in the I must prove myself. I have to do things better than everyone else. I have to impress my parents, I have to impress my husband, I have to impress the other mothers, because I want to be the best that I can be. And it was coming out of love for my kids and my family, but from a totally external place of proving. And fast forward a few years, I still hadn't done much to improve my situation. I did hire a life coach, which made a huge difference because I started to develop an awareness of what this storm was that I was always rushing around in. And I remember talking with him one time about how every morning I had this tightness of anxiety in my chest. And it was about getting the kids to school on time. Like, it doesn't really matter. They're the ones who are going to be at school. But I had this anxiety, and it would just continue the whole day on. It would be the same tightness in my chest. I didn't know that my body was trying to tell me something. So then it started speaking louder, my body. That's how they talk to us. If we don't pay attention to what's going on, we get bigger signals. So I developed a pain in my hip that was so excruciating I could barely make it up and down the stairs. I went and got x-rays to see if I had arthritis. Or if I turned over in bed at night, I would wake up with this shooting pain. Again, my body was trying to tell me something, but I didn't know how to listen. And with this life coach, I started to realize, this can't continue. I'm no good to anyone. So I took a deep dive into personal development. I spent 10 years and over $100,000 and thousands of hours trying to figure out how I could be the person that I knew I wanted to be, but was stuck in this old pattern. The difference between the chaos of the storm and what I've learned now, the peace and calm in the center of the storm, I've learned that it is courageous self-care. Self-care that goes beyond what we normally think of as self-care, beyond bubble baths, chocolate, and wine. So I'm going to share with you the top 3 mistakes that intelligent women are making with self-care and how to solve those. So mistake number 1, because we hear the word self in self-care, a lot of us are under the impression that it must be by ourselves. Yes, we can take care of ourselves by ourselves, but more powerfully, if we can find someone to help us with what we don't know, leaps and bounds in terms of the effect it will have on us. So I'm talking about a mentor or a coach, someone who knows more than you do at this certain point in your life about how you want to change. The other thing is, I've seen incredible healing happen in community. So the solution to thinking that you need to do self-care by yourself is to reach out. And it's hard to do it for yourself. I know it is. Because number 1, we want to prove that we can do everything ourselves. We're strong, independent women. And number 2, it's uncomfortable. So what I recommend is a mentor, and then a conscious community that you are joining on purpose with the intention of healing and lifting up your energy. Sometimes these are known as sacred circles. So I had this one client I was coaching, and she said, I go out with my friends, and that's what I do for self-care. And I said, what did you talk about with your friends the last time you saw them? And she said, well, we talked about politics and all the violence towards women, and I actually left feeling pretty depressed. That's not self-care. No. So yes, absolutely spend time with friends, but be choosy and notice how you feel before, during, and after. Those are great signals of whether that is truly caring for yourself. So seeking out a mentor, seeking out a conscious community of healing, often known as a sacred circle. Mistake number 2 is focusing solely on external self-care. I made this mistake for years. Being trained in kinesiology and education, I thought that if I ate right and exercised and slept well and hydrated myself, I would have all this energy. And I did to a certain extent, but it wasn't the kind of energy that I had heard about that's this overflowing energy so that we can give with love instead of bitterness and resentment. I didn't have that. And it wasn't until I did my personal development quest that I realized, oh, when we go deep inside with courage, where it can be a scary place when we get to know ourselves, that is truly self-care. And it takes courage because it's uncomfortable. It can be a completely foreign landscape, and yet it's transformational. So to give you a visual on that, imagine if, I usually do this, talk with a prop, which is a long stick, but I didn't think they would appreciate that on the plane. So imagine if you're kayaking and you're focusing on external self-care. You keep on dipping that paddle into the water. That is going in circles. And our energy will never be lifted up to be able to nurture others in the way that we want. So what I recommend is some external self-care, and then dip into the internal self-care. External, internal, and then you can move forward and make progress in your life. So I have a podcast that teaches about the 12 foundations of courageous self-care. It includes topics like we heard about from Tammy, forgiveness, freedom through forgiveness. Gratitude, growing your gratitude practice. I also love to share about finding harmony between masculine and feminine energy, which is a little bit woo-woo, but it also has to do with how your hormones are working in your body, so it has some very scientific results. Another thing I love to teach about in the foundations of courageous self-care is lightening up and having more fun. So I was speaking with one of my clients. She is running for Senate or Congress in the States, in Arizona. And every word that came out of her mouth had this really hard energy to it, like, I have to work hard at everything to make things happen. Any of you identify with that? If I'm not working hard, I'm not doing things right. So I said to her, can I just ask when the last time you had some good old-fashioned fun was? And she thought about it for a while and she said, well, I did play cards with my ex-husband on New Year's Eve. That was pretty fun. I said, no, that's not going to do. So I gave her some strategies and some homework so that she could build fun back into her life. So we want to focus on that internal and the external so that we can move forward. That's the solution to mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is the age-old excuse, I don't have enough time. So that is actually the very first foundation of courageous self-care, is shifting your relationship with time. If you think of time as your best friend, which you've probably never done before, would time want to be your friend the way that you think and speak about it? Probably not, because often we say things like, I just don't have enough time. If you were someone's friend and they said that to you, you're just not enough. You're not going to get any gifts or love back from time. Or I'm just going to kill some time. No, we don't want to kill our friends. Minding our words and our thoughts around time and really examining our relationship with it makes a monumental shift so that it can help you realize that's an excuse. Because underneath that, there is some fear about what could actually happen if I prioritized my well-being. So the next time you hear that thought, I don't have enough time, notice, where's that coming from? And if you think about it, the exact opposite is true. All we have is time. That's all we have. In this lifetime, that is the truth. So having that awareness and turning on that new idea, if I could treat time like a best friend, what would I do? And the benefits I've noticed myself from treating time like a friend, time gives me gifts. So I don't use that harsh language around time anymore. I use affirmations about how I want to feel with time. And that's the other important clue, is that the only way that you can be in relationship with time is by how you're feeling about it, through your emotions. So I always used to feel, when I started to journal about how I was interacting with time, like I put some effort into this relationship because I wanted it to change. So the way that I noticed that I was showing up and feeling with time usually was worried, stressed, and anxious. Do you want to be around a friend who's always feeling worried, stressed, and anxious? It's draining. So then I shifted into some new affirmations, which I shared about in my podcast last month. And if you want to look it up, it's on iTunes. It's called the Courageous Self-Care Podcast. So I have these new affirmations around time, and time started giving me these gifts, like little surprises, like grandparents saying, hey, we'll take the kids. Why don't you and your husband go on a date? What a gift. Or extra time that I didn't think was coming. I always affirm that I have perfect timing. And I walk up to the bank and step right up in front because I affirm that I have perfect timing. When I turn to leave, a big long line behind me. I've been saying that I have perfect timing for years, and it continues to show up as the truth. So mistake number 3, the solution is to start thinking about your time as your best friend. Now, I did want to share with you that you can go out and do all these things on your own, but one of the problems is that and I suffered from this for years, when I started to want to prioritize my own well-being, I made lists of things that I would do for self-care, and it turned out that I just felt like I had more to do. Okay, now I've got to meditate, and now I've got to go and do this forgiveness practice, and now I've got to incorporate this gratitude practice into my day. It didn't feel like it was carrying towards myself at all. It just felt like more stuff to do. And so what I've been able to do is develop a system on how to shift into making those things feel like gifts to myself rather than extra things on my list. So I decided today, I was in meditation, I had this great idea that I would have a contest. And what I want to invite you to enter is for a monthly online virtual live event that I have called the Monthly Self-Care Tune-Up. So it is gathering in live community with the purpose of healing and energizing, lifting up our energy, and we go through the foundations of courageous self-care. So what I decided is that I would have a draw, and once I'm finished, you can come over to my table in the corner in the sun over there and enter the draw. So the prize, I'm giving out 5 of them to just women in this room. Yay! Yay, I'm glad you're excited. Is a 3-month pass, 3 months access to this self-care tune-up. And the benefit of the tune-up is that you will start to understand how to go from that chaos, if that's where you are, to being that productive and peaceful woman, so that you can go out and make a difference in other people's lives at the same time as prioritizing your own well-being. We'll do it without the guilt. So if you are feeling like you could use a 3-month pass to this live monthly event, please do come visit my table. I have draw slips waiting there for you. And to finish up, I want to re-emphasize that what the Dalai Lama said is true. As Western women, we do have the power to change the world. We have the resources, we have everything at our disposal, as long as we start practicing self-care with courage.